Hello, friends. I suppose you're probably wondering how a haunted suit of armor, an assassin, a dual being, an Eladrin cleric, and a Gith fighter mage all found themselves stuck in the swampy keep of a morose archfey, looking for the brother of the tabaxi smuggler that transported their unconscious bodies in stasis tanks to sigil the City of Doors, yeah? So, are you ready to hear the rest of the tale? Then let us commence. Let's check in with Minko again, shall we? Previously, the resolute monk had been waiting to hear back from the Resistance's Big Three. That is, the three Fae in charge of the underground freedom fighter movement in once was, a ruined city ruled over, as with all of the Feywild domain of Murkhaine, by the Archfey and Lord Shade Val Rillin Firstborn. That was a lot. Where was I? Oh yes, Minko. He had been waiting to hear back from the Resistance leaders about what they planned to do about syncing up the Resistance movement with the Ragtags over in the swamps, hoping to get some kind of guerrilla synergy going on. Eventually, the strange seer Vilena returned and told both Minko and Bandamund to gather their things and to get ready. She also told Minko that he should see Auntie Olea as well. When Minko stopped by the hag's hut, Olea seemed to know that she wasn't going to see him again for a while, and told him that he had come very far in his training in a very short time, and that he knew even more than he thought he did. Minko thanked her for all her help, teaching him to interact with the material world as a spirit or echo, or whatever he was now when he wasn't inside Bray's mind. Vilena and Bandamund found him at the hut, and they brought others including Ferrin, one of the leaders of the Resistance. Ferrin told Minko that he, Bandamund, Vilena, and a small group of others would be heading out on a special mission to a place called the Gossamers, to hunt down any clues to the whereabouts of the Glimmer, the lost artifact that once belonged to Gwyn Wynn, the Spider Queen, and that was believed to perhaps hold the key to defeating Val Rillin, or at least give everyone a fighting chance against him. It was believed that this course of action could save time for the Ragtags, who were pursuing the Glimmer far from this side of Murkhaine in the Stone Shores, a region to the west, since it was geographically closer to them. If Minko and the others could uncover clues about the Glimmer being somewhere in the Gossamers, then the Ragtags could speed there and ignore any other leads. It wasn't the worst plan. I think. Ferrin added that the Resistance would cause a diversion to help the small band of companions leave the city unnoticed by Val Rillin's strange Fae sentries. With that, the group departed. I've got a good feeling about this. Yes, I think it's going to be smooth sailing right onto the Gossamers for them, eh? You know, wherever that is. Yup. Meanwhile, back with the Ragtags, they were standing and sitting around in their suites in Torr Nyth, discussing possible next steps. If you'll remember, they had just finished a tense banquet with Morgilla the Black Swan, the Archfey ruler of the Drungamere swamps, and aunt to the Lord Shade Val Rillin. While they puzzlingly didn't ask the morose and complex Fae any questions about the many, many details of her past, and that of her families, as detailed in all of the Bard's scrolls they had discovered and painstakingly studied and passionately debated over the last week or so, the companions still managed to infer that Morgilla and her minions had, probably, met and or dealt with Answer's brother Jewel, as well as the Seelie Fae agents and friends, Frobisher and Sloane, who were all missing now, and had gone missing in the same swamps Morgilla ruled over. So, that was something, I guess. Growing restless, waiting around, debating and hemming and hawing and wearing any other shades of the spectrum of procrastination, Drogan decided to off and head down the perilous sea cliff face outside their suites and investigate the large grotto they had seen before the banquet. Did I mention he has a cloak of Arachnida? He has a cloak of Arachnida. So, yeah, heading down a cliff. It's as simple as getting a Modron to obsess over subclassifications in a classification system. And that is to say, well, it's simple all right. Just take my word for it. The stealthy half-elf literally walked down the cliff and soon was strolling along the stalagmite-strewn ceiling of the darkened sea grotto. Below, half sunken in the seawater, were several ruined temples and buildings. A main temple on a raised portion of land had a lantern glowing on it. Drogan made his way to the temple and saw that in the middle of the structure there was a fallen statue and the plinth it had once stood upon. With his keen eyes, he also saw that the plinth appeared to hide a hidden door, as he could see recent drag marks on the floor, where the stone pedestal had been moved out of place. With that, Drogan pushed the plinth aside, revealing a secret entrance. Well, it took a while. I'm sure the plinth was very heavy. Tools were needed to gain leverage, Vers, but you know what? It's fine. Drogan made his way down into the cavern below the temple. It led into a natural-seeming tunnel into the earth. Eventually, as it levelled off, there was about a foot or so of seawater at the bottom. Drogan took to the stalactite-covered ceiling and soon entered what was a large chamber, about 350 by 250 feet, shrouded in darkness. Occasionally, in the distance, and around squintingly perceived corners, he could see small floating red lights that would appear and then disappear. After moving slightly further into the room, he could see on the flooded floor and against the damp rocky walls something strange and disturbing. It appeared to be groupings and clusters of what could only be described as egg-like sacs and related viscous slime that disappeared in unknown numbers into the darkness of the large chamber. At one point, one of the sacs seemed to move, and Drogan could swear that it seemed like the movements were from a humanoid-sized figure trapped inside. Unsurprisingly unsettled by all this, and feeling very out of his depth, Drogan decided to retreat for now, heading back up through the cavern to the temple. After restoring the plinth behind him, the half-elf assassin decided to check out a staircase at the back of the grotto. The stairs were wide, and rose slowly up into the cliffs for a long time. Eventually, the ascent came to an abrupt end, and Drogan had to open a secret door to continue. The doorway led into a darkened hall that, he assumed, was somewhere beneath Torr Nyth. The hall had a couple of locked doors that he easily opened. The first room was some sort of study, though it hadn't been used in some time by the looks of it. Poking about, Drogan discovered a couple of scrolls. Oh, haha. Not those kinds of scrolls. One for a revivify spell, and one for remove curse. Always good to have those in the back pocket, yeah? The other room was being used as an impromptu storage area, and had been unused for longer even than the dusty study. In here, Drogan found another scroll. Once again, not that kind of scroll. This time for a teleport spell. Very nice. Never hurts to be able to just bug out when you need to, right? After this, Drogan ascended some stairs that led to a large hall. A hall that had about 10 hobgoblin guards in it. So with that, the shadowy assassin decided to head back to his companions and retraced his steps back downstairs, and then down the long winding staircase through the cliffs. As he was traversing the grotto's rocky ceiling on his way back, Drogan saw that the plinth had been moved again, as though perhaps someone was inside the strange chamber now. Deciding that wasn't a concern to be investigated at the moment, especially by him, the half-elf continued on his way. Soon he returned to the suites in the keep and to the Ragtags, who had been... well, they had continued to debate things at length and were actually really happy to see Drogan return with a lot of information, discoveries, and the like. After Drogan brought everyone up to speed, it was quickly decided, relatively quickly of course, that Brace and Varys would be polymorphed into giant eagles by the pixies, and they would fly regal answers and Devrina down to the temple in the grotto, while Unia would levitate, Drogan would walk, and the pixies would fly down, and all would meet. With that, the companions flew down to the temple in, I must say, epic style. So, yeah, just like that. Upon arriving and unpolymorphing, everyone could see that the plinth had been returned to its place. After pushing it open, the Ragtags descended into the dark cavern below, uncertain what to expect next. I mean, you don't need me to tell you. It's going to be some kind of danger, right? A chamber full of weird egg-like sacks is never anything good, is it?